This is a channeled message from the angels. We're going to be getting into the economic changes, political changes, and earth changes. Welcome back to my channel, you guys. For those of you who are here for the first time, I'm Ann Tucker. I'm a trance channel. I channel from the angelic realm. And today's message is a Q&A session that I had with the angels. And we're going to go through some of the specific questions that were asked. We're going to talk a lot about what's coming and then break down with some pretty specific information about those main topic areas, about the economy of the United States specifically, and then as that affects the world, as well as earth changes and political changes that are happening here in the U.S. that then, like I said, then roll out and do have a global effect. I also would like to tell you guys about a program that is starting January 30th called the Circle of 12. Lots of you have asked if whether or not I do private sessions, and I don't, except in the structure of these circles that the angels create. These are energetic structures where a group of people work together as one energetic whole. And then there's private sessions that help people as we're working through that process together. And I have a circle that's forming that's called the Circle of 12. It's a new program that the angels are starting with me. And there are a few spaces left. It is on my website. I will drop a link to it in the description box below. You can find it on my website, which is antucker.com. Find out more about it. So I hope you enjoy the message today.
So here is what they say. And we get, as we go into the message later on, they get very specific about earth changes and economy and all this kind of stuff. And just as a precursor, as we talk about all this stuff, do listen with your own discernment and try to come at this as much as you guys have from your own spiritual wisdom and your own spiritual perspective, that none of this is meant to cause fear. And you can tell by the way they're talking about it, it's not meant to cause fear, that this is stuff we're going through to get to, you know, a wonderful destination. And that's what we should be focused on. All right, so here's what they say. All will circumvent their feeling selves. All will rise in powerful awareness of self. All dwell within the housing of their own creation and experience it more powerfully now than they have begun in times past. They will feel themselves within the context of this arousal of senses, a beginning, a breach to the opening of times to come. So they're saying we're moving into this, and I'm going to do this as usual. I'll read a paragraph and then we'll talk about it a little bit if it needs some discussion. But let's move into the next paragraph. And this one is a doozy, so we'll break this next paragraph apart a little bit. They say, it will be held as a time of arrival for all. In this we see and speak of now. An eternity lives within the self, impregnating each moment drawn within this time now. There is a permanence of imposition which you will feel, as though each seeking time, each moment of reflection does endure. For the eternal self does draw down and infuse this important time to let go of what was, and impregnates the sensation of awakening to make part and parcel of the self, to bring down and through more heavenly awareness for the self. And this time does draw on and speculate, you will. So what they're saying here, in a nutshell, is that as we're going through this time, our existence, our experience of now is becoming more and more saturated with our experience of our higher selves. And that higher self contains a connection to eternity, to all things, to like time going on forever. So there's this perspective that comes in. So, and that's really what they're talking about here. So they're saying that, and they're saying that our own selves, our expression in this life becomes more connected to that higher self that we really are. So here's what they're saying, that to just kind of go through the sentences here, an eternity lives within the self, so that higher self, that, and really that we've heard that every cell in your body contains your DNA, your blueprint of everything, right? Like you have the universe inside of yourself. So they're saying an eternity lives within the self, impregnating each moment drawn within this time now. So it's like that eternity is coming through. We're getting it more in touch with that experience of ourselves as eternal beings and with our connection to all that is. So they're saying impregnating each moment drawn in this time of now. There is a permanence of imposition which you will feel, as though each seeking time, each moment of reflection does endure. So there's the sense of like timelessness, and that each time, each moment of time is fuller of all this meaning, that you're coming into every second that you're living with this perspective of your higher self, right? That every moment starts to become connected to eternity, that it's almost like time doesn't matter anymore, right? That a moment of time becomes all time, which is hard for us to wrap our heads around. But that's what they're saying, is that if we're bringing in our experience of all things at all moments, then every moment of time becomes eternity. For the eternal self does draw down from higher self and infuse this important time to let go of what was, and impregnates the sensation of awakening. So it's like it doing this helps us let go of what we've been and how things have been. And it brings into this, impregnates this sensation of awakening. So it kind of brings us this experience of like greater comprehension. And they'd say to make part and parcel of the self. And I looked that up. To make part and parcel means to make something a basic and necessary part of something. So if something is part and parcel of, then it's a basic and necessary part of. So it basically makes the self, makes yourself, your expression here, part and parcel, or a basic and necessary part of eternity, of the higher expression. So it's really bringing what we used to think of as like being yourself used to be like being just like the big toe of your higher self. Like you were just this little tiny bit of your higher self. And they're saying not anymore. Like now there's this much more fluid connection between your expression in this life and that higher expression. So you're literally letting everything, letting the universe, letting your experience of eternity flow through you. So that is what they're talking about. And this time does draw on and speculate, you will. So they're giving us some feelings of like, what is it going to be like as we're moving into this new experience, right? And I see you guys joining in. Hey, it's great to see you, Effie and Salome. So good to see you, and Betsy. Okay, so let's go on and look at the next paragraph. The becoming, you will feel it rising in the self, but it's not as you will feel it or see it yet. No, indeed. You must remain open, shuttered not by your contemplative nature, not allowing yourself to bring forward and toward this new becoming what you expect. No, indeed. Let yourself be open, remain within the drawing wind, prevailing toward further beyond. Let yourself surmise not what it is. Remain open, dears. And this is really reflective of some of their past messages for us, which was all about being open and not being locked into what we think it needs to be, and not being locked into our expectations for ourselves and our lives, to really start to open and to be ready for what comes, to be in flow, right? To be ready for how things evolve. So that, yeah, so they're really, that's reiterating that in this sentence or this paragraph. All right, there's to remain open, shuttered not by your contemplative nature. So we have a nature, our nature is to like think about things and hash things through and overthink and get in that thought spiral. And they're saying like, leave that behind, be in the flow and be open to what comes, and just let it be what it's going to be. And to be open enough to see things that might really blow you away, that might be totally outside of anything you've ever experienced before. All right, next paragraph. We say this is a time of reckoning for some, yes. There will be drawn down from this high perch of arrival, where society does live comfortably, does rest and stay within a frame created for itself. And this will fall apart. There will not survive the same level of stability which you have enjoyed for some time. It will be different for some, for many, for all to some measure, the degree. There will be changes afoot. For all we seek to unveil to yourselves, it will be a time of coming, and all must smooth their own way, their own path upward. And those who do not, who carry on the breach of this awareness, who stay within the fold of what was, they will suffer some and will live a tempestuous time. But those who are coming into the fold of their awareness, who feel themselves lifted within and apart from what was, will thrive into the new beginning, into the beginning. So the beginning of this paragraph, they're talking about how we have been in a period of amazing stability. At least in the United States, we have been. I know there's a lot of countries that would love a little stability right now. Like I'm thinking of Lebanon and Afghanistan, and like there's a lot of countries that are like, please, just a minute of stability would be lovely. But for many countries, it has been a period of a lot of stability, and they're saying that that's going to change for a while. That the structures that have kept that period of stability in place, those are going to be falling apart. So they're saying that this will fall apart. There will not survive the same level of stability which you have enjoyed for some time. And they're saying it will be different for some, and that the way we experience it, this is going to be by degrees, that it's going to be different for everybody, and that it's up to us, they're saying, to smooth our own path. That the more that we are locked into and hoping to cling to what was, the more that we wish to keep on the way things have been, the harder, the more in resistance we are. And this is true for everything, right? It's like the truth of all spirituality. The more we are in resistance, the more friction we create. It's like life is going to carry you onward. And the more you dig your heels in, the more friction you feel. It's just it just makes sense, right? And whereas if you just lift your feet up and let yourself be carried, then you go with a flow and there's no friction. If you guys ever saw that movie with Jodie Foster, what is it called? Contact, where she goes in that little circular pod and she's kind of going, she's traveling to some other, place in the universe and meeting with some other species, and through their own thinking of how things have to be, they try to lock her in the middle of this pod, right? They build this chair that was not in the blueprints, and they strap her down and lock her in, and they're like, you got to be really secure. And she tries riding in that way, and as she's getting shaken to death, right? She's like, it's horrible, like she's going to be made unconscious because she's being shaken so much. And as soon as she unbuckles and lets herself just be, and not strapped in and not tied into the structure, if she just lets go, then she's completely peaceful and floating, right? And I think that's a really great metaphor for what this year is going to be. So just like unbuckle, right? Unbuckle and let yourself float in the middle. You're saying, I love the idea of smoothing your own path, especially if we drop resistance. Yeah, absolutely. All right. And they're saying, yeah, but those who are coming into the fold of their awareness, who feel themselves lifted within and apart from what was, will thrive into the becoming. So it's very possible to have a good experience of what's coming. It's very possible, even though that means a lot of change and a lot of disruption. That doesn't mean that we have to be in resistance and in friction with it. All right, next paragraph. There will be some changes afoot, dear. As you have known, there will come, and just so you know, they're speaking to all of us, but there are times here when they're speaking directly to my son who was asking the questions, and to me. And so there's one paragraph I left in that was kind of specific to his question, but I think it applies to everyone, so I'm going to include that in. But okay, there'll be some changes afoot, dear. As you have known, there will come a time of separation from what is known to yourselves, habituated. The times of which we have spoken. There is on the horizon, just beneath yourselves, a rising. A crack is forming in the earth herself, and this does rise, and make within this time period spoken a way of bringing forward towards yourselves greater opening. And this having passed, you will find yourselves without some things to which you are accustomed. So they're talking about, when they say the time period, we're talking about this year. So we're saying, okay, what's happening in this 2022? That was a specific question. So they're saying in this year specifically, there are changes afoot. As you have known, there will come a time of separation from what is known to yourself. So we're going to be letting go of the way things have been. There is on the horizon, just beneath yourselves, a rising. A crack is forming in the earth itself. So this is in the year. A crack is forming in the earth itself, and this does rise, and make within this time period spoken. So I think they're talking about that this major earth change within this year, 2022, a way of bringing forward towards yourselves greater opening. So this is for us about opening and rising ourselves. So in this having passed, you will find yourselves without some things to which you are accustomed. So we've talked about that there might not be the same availability. And you were saying unbuckle, right? Yeah, I think it's a good way to think about it. Unbuckling within, inside the pod, like letting yourself float in the middle. All right, next paragraph. You will need the support of each other, of one another. You will require greater upliftment by ourselves. It will be a time of damaging consequences for many. They will bring within the shell of living a rancor that has passed through some already. There has been the devastation. There has been trial and tribulation for many who have come and moved through this energy to some degree. But more arrives. There is yet untoward circumstances to evolve, and she will rise, the earth herself, and begin to shed her layers complete and make herself known to you all as one who rises beneath your feet and makes herself worthy of comeuppance. And you will feel it as one of many. All will become aware, and this does fall upon yourselves in this time shortening. So, okay, so they're saying here, the beginning, they're saying you will need the support of one another, and they've talked about that in the past. That part of coping with what comes and being in the flow means, and part of this return to oneness and this understanding ourselves in the context of humanity is about connecting with each other and helping each other, and that's helping each other in a bunch of different ways, right? It's seeing those opportunities where we can help each other. So we're going to need more upliftment by them as well. And they said there will be some damaging consequences. Here they talk about they will bring within this shell of living a rancor that has passed through some already. And rancor means like a bitterness, that there's a bitterness that has passed through some already. There has been devastations. They're talking about there has been trial and tribulation. So think about the past 2 years. It has been a tough time already. And think about the incredible, there are so many natural disasters these days that stuff that would have been on the front page for weeks or months is now a blip, and then it's replaced with some other disaster. Like Vancouver was just, in Canada, was just so flooded that it was cut off from the rest of the country. And that was on the page, on the paper for like, a very short period of time. And then we're talking, and then the tornadoes in the Midwest. And those are just things that are near me, like around the world. There has been devastating floods. And then there's all of the stuff around COVID. There's been so many things that have been happening. So here they're kind of touching on that and saying that from this experience, there are people who have lost so much, and they're already moving through that energy. And there's that, they said their rancor, their bitterness for some that are experiencing these things. But there's more yet to come. So they're saying this, they are compassionate. They really are. But they're saying that it is coming, and you will feel it as one of many. All will become aware, and this just fall upon yourselves in time of shortening. So they're really telling us this is coming. There's more coming in this year. And you're saying Colorado wildfires. Yes, that just happened. Oh my gosh, right? Just horrible and devastating stuff has been happening. And okay, so moving on to the next paragraph, they say, a habitude you have of living, self and solace found within the treasured confines of experience which you have drawn together in this time, as it lies still. But now all disruption comes and leaves asunder all that was counted upon, and must be redrawn and recorded amongst yourselves, and you must find a path toward the future from now. And this will be okay, all right. You will suffer some from the perspective of self. You will find yourselves challenged to some degree, but not really. When confronted with these shifting times, you will rise within and feel yourselves lucky to have been alive in this time. You will feel your own arrival within the frame of this rejection of existence as it has been known. So they're saying in the beginning here, they're saying that we have this idea, this habitude that we have of living, self and solace found within the treasured confines of experience, which you have drawn together in this time as it lies still. So what that means is that that we have a lot of comfort in the things that are known and the things that we love. Like we have built a life for ourselves. You have a life built for yourself. You have a home, and you have the things around you that make you feel comfortable. And these things, we count these as the ways that we retreat or we restore ourselves, that we find ourselves, we express ourselves in these ways. And they're saying that this disruption comes, and that some of the things that we've counted on aren't going to be there anymore. They might not be there anymore. And that we have to build a future from this point going forward, that it really is a chance to sort of like, okay, fresh start. All this stuff that we thought was super important may not be so important. And we're building a future from now, from this point forward. And they said that we might be challenged to some degree, but not really. That yeah, the beginning can be hard, but where we're going is so worth it. And that it is possible to build a new future from this place and to create something much better than we had before. And you're saying to appoint only in the national news for one day more than 1,000 homes in a metro area. Yes, about the Colorado fires. Yeah, you're right. In the news for a day. You're absolutely right. And Betsy is saying we are like pioneers headed towards a new frontier. I really feel that way. Like we don't know what's coming, and that's part of the fun. It's part of the excitement of what is going to evolve. And yeah, there's some difficulty, but it sounds like it's not. Everything isn't going to happen everywhere. They've said that before. Some things will happen here and there. We will all experience it in some way. And the degree that we're not in resistance to it means we can flow through and see the opportunities and see how we can start planning our future going forward. What is it going to look like? What do we want it to be? All right, next paragraph. There comes within this time yet more economic upheaval. There is first and foremost the tribulations to come of this earthly dimension. Yes, disruption of all kinds. We see now yourselves having difficulty with payment processing, with the dispersion of wealth, and discover upon yourselves a grievance to have with those in banking. This trial makes itself known to the public, to all concerned. It is a discovery within the United States, not elsewhere, not yet. Coming, as all will be affected by this tribulation. So they're starting to get into the specifics here. And they're talking about, and they mentioned this in channelings that I did, maybe a year ago, about the US banking system. And you guys know, I also did a timeline video that showed that we have energies coming in this year for the United States specifically that are telling us that that we're having what's called the Pluto return, and it's in our house of finance, if for the United States specifically, based on the birth chart of the United States as a nation. And this could mean, and what they said at the time, would that the banks would be closed for some time. So this is what they're talking about here, that we're having difficulty with payment processing. They're getting very specific, that means that we can't pay for things with our credit cards. It means we can't pay for things normally the way we normally would. That the dispersion of wealth, so getting your money out of the bank becomes difficult, right? That we have a grievance with those in banking. And it happens in the United States, is what they're saying in this paragraph. Then they go on to say, there will be housing within this discovery, and this is really interesting, housing within this discovery, an ancient tremble of what is past before. It will reassemble the players who have gone once in this direction and let them play out again the riddle of their existence. So just that little droplet there, but they're basically telling us that the people who are in the hot seat, the people who have, and it looks like there is some sort of scandal, some sort of mess up where things go badly with the leaders in our country. And they're basically saying that the key players of this have lived this in a prior existence, and they're having a chance to go through it again. And that's what they're just telling us here, that the people who are in the hot seat have been in the hot seat before for a very similar experience. So that's just a little point of interest for us. All right, and then they go on to say, and you will feel the shaking and trembling of earth herself amidst this very cacophony of voices, creating a rumble unheard before. There will rise among humanity the sensation that all is lost and cannot deliver themselves in safety, but this is not true. So it sounds to me from this paragraph that in the middle of what could be this banking crisis, and the banking crisis, they say later, if this happens, all of this is like, these are energies that are going to be coming through. They could happen, they might not happen, but everything is aligned where it looks likely to happen. I think it's a thing where let's hope for the best and prepare for the worst. So what that means is, and we'll talk about this later, that means that have some cash on hand to pay for your necessary expenses, to pay for gas, to pay for food, to get you through if there's a period of time that the banks are closed. That's the practical implications of what this is saying. And you don't have to go crazy, but think of the things that you're going to need for your basics to get you through if there's a period of time that the banks have locked down. And this is happening. If you want a model of what that looks like, this is happening in Lebanon right now, where their banks, I think they can only take out like a certain amount of money every month. And it's if there's, it may or may not be enough to cover their basic needs, that the banks have locked down and prevented them from withdrawing all their money because they don't want their banking system to collapse. So it happens. It happens to countries, and it could happen here. And they're saying you just want to be prepared for that. So, and then they're saying in this paragraph that in the middle of all this, which could happen in February, that Pluto return energy, I think it's, and I am not an astrologer, so forgive me if I say dates wrong or if I say the terminology incorrectly. I learned from other astrologers, and then I just use that to help inform my own opinions about what's coming. But it's exact it's an exact return in February, I think 22nd or 20th, somewhere in there. And then it repeats 2 other times in the year. So the energy is going to be through this year. And I think it even goes, like it extends. There's other energies that are going to be really influential going for the next 2 years. So, but it is something to really look out for and to just be aware of and be prepared for. And you don't have to be in fear. It's a thing where if you just don't want to be in a position where you only have the cash in your wallet. You want to have enough money set aside so that you can buy gas and pay for groceries if you need them, All right. And then they go on to say there will be, and then the important thing about this paragraph is they're saying that during the middle of this, we could also experience a natural disaster. So this is significant. And they're saying that there could be the feeling, because of that happening sort of on two fronts, that there could be a really just a sensation of like, oh my gosh, now this, like, it could be really upsetting. But they're saying that it's not true, that it's the idea that all is just not true at all. So not to lose hope as this is unfolding. They go on to say there will be some factions that rise within this time that feel themselves an injustice, affronted, and must persecute. They will rise and feel themselves vindicated for actions untoward. They will perform such immolations of building and property and create a ruckus of unpleasant nature. And this we wish would happen not, but we cannot stop it. We must allow it, for we of angelic form do observe and support yourselves. And wish now the happenings you must go through, the torrent of feeling and emotion that must pass through humanity, could be abated by yourselves alone. So they're talking about here, and they talk about this a little bit more, the factions that will rise within this time and feel themselves, that there'll be some rioting, right? That there'll be some major disruption among people. And it sounds like immolation of buildings, that's like people burning things, people burning buildings, and rioting is what they're talking about. And they're saying that they wish that they could prevent this, but it's that we have to go through our own expression of emotion. And they're saying that we ourselves can alter or change the course of events. And thank you, Betsy, for putting that in. Pluto return February 20th, July 12th, and December 28th. Magic. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. Okay. They go on to say, only you have the power to stop what transpires through your own selves, your own beings, not another. Your own feelings and expressions can alter and change what occurs. Your feelings must rise and pass through with gentility and understanding, acceptance of the earth herself, of the rhythms and patterns of life, and understand you will be well. So it's about what is your personal experience of all of this, right? Is your experience in resistance, or are you in flow? Are you understanding and compassionate, or are you in judgment? Where are we in resistance? And trying to get to that space where we are in the flow of what evolves, and try to stay in our spiritual perspective and our higher self. So hopefully that makes sense. They go on to say, this challenge and change in the economy, it surfaces now and creates for some a rumble through their very beings, makes them feel themselves unworthiness rises within. Fears come up. This is where anxiety, fever, anxiousness all culminates within your beings. Here we fear there will be some who are lost. So there are some people who let the fear get the better of them. And they're telling us this now to let us be aware. Awareness is so important. If we can just see ourselves, and all of us have that little pit in our stomach where it's like, oh my gosh, am I going to be okay? And they're saying, yeah, you are. You're going to be okay. That you don't have to be experiencing the worst of things, that we need to be prepared for change. But they're really trying to point out and say, like, notice where this creates fear for yourself, and look at that, and try to get to a place where you can trust, and try to get to a place where you say, I'm going to be okay, that I don't need all the trappings that I've had, that if things change, what emerges from that could be way better. And they've been telling us this for a long time. And we can't visualize what that new structure, new society is going to be. But they're telling us that we're going to be really, really happy that we were here now and that we came through this. They go on to say, there is a stagnant energy within the frame of this time yet. It must stay and dawdle. It must build within. It is not arriving just yet. There is still stagnant energy within the earth herself. There is stagnation within herself. There is yet an impregnation. There is yet an impregnation of her field. Yes, the import of all this does rest just above and beyond herself, and presses against her, and makes itself known. And she will rupture her part. It will happen, but not just yet. So they're saying that we are in this period right now, that we're in right now, is this period of stagnant energy, that there's this period we have to go through. That is, and there's a stagnation in the earth herself. It's almost like, if you can imagine a layer on top, that is this energy of, it could be like a resistance. It's dead. It's stagnant energy. It's energy that doesn't want to move. And we're moving through that energy right now. And this experience of change is pressing in all the time. And it's going to press through that stagnant energy could be felt as a resistance to what's coming. It's a pause. It's a breath, right? It could be part of that sort of cycle of breathing as we're kind of going through things and heading into this wave of change. But they're saying it's pressing, it's coming, and that the earth herself is feeling this. And she will rupture her parts. They're saying there will be that some sort of, and again, that none of this is for sure, none of this is promised, but this is what the angels perceive. And just so you know, when I look as I'm channeling them, I get visions. I see what they're saying, and the way they show me when they see time is that, if you can imagine the way they show it to me, the way I can best comprehend it, because they don't see time in a linear way as we do, the way they see things that could happen. Imagine a bunch of octagons with all these different H-sided shapes. And the one that we're in right now is like one octagon with all these shapes. And then connecting to it on these different sides are other octagons going off in all directions. And each of those are in 3 dimensions. So they're pivoting and changing all the time. These octagons around us are rotating, and we are rotating. And so as we move, we come into connection with different possibilities. So there's, and then beyond each of these, like if there's a field of octagons around us, there's more beyond, and they're floating and moving all the time. So as we are moving, the angels can look and say, okay, look, here's a field that's turning, that's coming into view, the face of an octagon that is connected or ready to meet with your place where you are now. But if you don't move in that direction, it's going to turn and move, and you're not going to go that way. So it's like that, where there's these shifting. So they can look and say, okay, we can see there's 3 octagons coming into play that all have this possibility. But if they move and shift, it's not going to happen. But they can say, okay, there's lots of turns here, lots of faces that show a similar outcome. There's a high probability of this happening. Does that make sense? That's how they show it to me. And that's how I understand their perception of things in terms of likelihoods of things unfolding. And they're saying there's a high likelihood of this unfolding. But nothing is promised. All things could change. We always have free will. And the earth herself has free will. She is a being. She is the one that's determining her own healing schedule. So, okay. So we are in this period of stagnation going on. The field is swollen with the energy. We feel it. And then my son asked months, and they said, it is this timing in mind. We could see this happening indeed. It is not an accurate projection, for there are forces of will at play. So that's what I was just saying, is that there's individual will at play. The earth herself gets to choose when things happen. Humans make choices, make changes, do things differently. But they're saying months is it possible, like months, like February. And they're saying in this timing in mind, we could see this happening indeed. So it is definitely a possibility. Then the next paragraph, it will be a happening of source, a kind unknown to yourselves, not experienced in this generative rendition of people. Hereditarily, it has occurred. And then he asks the Great Depression, and they say there have been instances of this, yes, happenings in that time. There were occurrences in that mix. And he asks bank runs, and they say of this sort, yes, yes, indeed. There have been times when all was frozen and not accurately reflected by those in power, when hidden surmises were made public and known, and all did unveil and leave yourselves appalled. This has occurred in the past, and you have known yourselves hereditarily to feel the juncture when all has fallen upon hard times and left without dispersal of your income. This has occurred before, not now in these times, but you know of it, and this will occur again. We foresee this occurring shortly, in soon transition, and sometime near to now, this could occur. So they're saying basically, yeah, that we haven't experienced it, that it could happen shortly. And then he asks February, and they say this will be a juncture of possibility and opening of source. This could occur in this time. There are multiple transition phases in this annual time frame in which this might build and release. A friction forms, and this does cause the instrumentation to reveal such as we fear to say for yourselves. This could occur now, this happening time you have described, so February, or it could be another such juncture as is laid before you now. This year of transition contains many such points of transition which could inflame. There are energies and forces at play, intermixed and intermingled. These could all concern you now and come together in some form of expression you do not like. So it's really like 2022 is, this economy thing is going to be a major play, as well as a potential earth shift, earth change, earth rupture, whatever that is going to look like. They go on to say, and then he asks, what should we do to prepare? And this is when they're kind of speaking to him, but I think all of you guys have heard this before, and many of you guys have already done this. So, but just to reiterate, for those of you who are wondering, like, what do we do? How do we go into this in a way not to feel fear, just to feel like we have the information and we've responded appropriately and can now relax. And the answer is, you have done well and formed your opinions upon these times we've spoken of. You know how it is occurring, what potentials lie in wait, and have made choices of a reflective sort. We are inspiring your mother now, that's me, to create and harbor a plantation of energy, a space of growing things. So you guys know I'm moving to a place where I can grow a garden. Because even though the angels have said that it's not that nothing will be available, it's just that not everything will be available. And I have a fairly particular diet, so I'm going to grow my own stuff so that I know that I will have what I need. I'm a vegan and gluten free and all that stuff. So for that reason, I'm starting a garden. And if you have a space available where you can grow stuff, awesome, like great to do that, and you could share it with other people. So it's a cool thing to do. They say, this will serve you well. You have also done as we have told, and made yourselves avail of energy stored as currency, and have this within your dwelling. You all have also grown a store and stash of energy foodstuffs, and made this for yourselves done well. So that's really, they're saying, if you can grow something, if you have the space to grow something, go for it. And even if you are living in say, for example, you're living in a rented space or in an apartment where you don't have any outdoor space, then grow, like on your counter, you can grow microgreens really easily. Like, it's so easy. You don't even need light. You literally just buy a big thing of seeds and you put in a little water and boom, and you can grow alfalfa sprouts and broccoli sprouts. You can grow mung beans, which turn into bean sprouts, and they're awesome. And it literally takes like nothing. You just stick up a thing on your countertop and you're done. And the seeds are not that expensive. So that would be a really easy way to make sure you can still get fresh produce no matter what happens, and no matter where you're living. Or if you have a balcony, you can grow a few things on your balcony. Just look at what your options are, what makes sense for you. I have a friend who is an amazing gardener who has been giving me some tips, who does live in a place where she can't grow where she is, but she has a pea patch, right, in the city. And she is an amazing gardener. She has a space that she grows everything, and she's been really helpful. Thank you, Anna. So anyways, okay, so going on. So the next paragraph, the politicals, this goes into the politics of this year. This is super interesting, you guys, about what might happen in the US, sort of the third prong, or the third leg of all of this. We have the first leg, which is the economy. We have the second leg, which is earth changes. And this is the third leg, which is the political sphere. The political sphere does shift and alter in this time frame which you are living in. There is not the same power and authority held by your nation, which is the United States, where I live. It changes being. It is no longer as it was. There are not the same circumstances that held in place, and it does diminish in power and become, as forefathers felt, a greater expression of the people within it. It is held to some as an opportunity, forlorn for too long, to create equality among people. And this is what is revealing itself. And I get chills as I say that. It will take time to reframe. There will be many opportunities within this. So I think that is amazing, but it really is, and it makes sense with the Pluto return, or the Pluto return is all about shaking things down to their foundation. And what was the United States really built on? Like, it was, the whole idea was to create a place where everyone was equal. That was the concept, right? And they're saying, like, that's where we're trying to get back to that ideal, trying to get back to that and see if we can do a better job of it. All right, the next paragraph, the separation of fields, it comes in spurts and starts. There will be regions of employ that feel much the same, and others where persons are drawing apart from what is now spoken. There are fields of many parties of withdrawal. It occurs in stages, but this upheaval begins with many voices spoken. An argument erupts within the nation itself and creates a cacophony of voices separating from one another. So they're really saying that there's a major separation. And as they were talking about this, I saw the visual I had was, they showed the current government of the United States. It's almost like what I saw was there was an upheaval, and I don't know if that upheaval happens because of a upheaval within the leadership itself. There was a long time ago where the angels said that there was a leader who could pass. So I don't know if Biden dies, or if it's because of the economic circumstances or the earth rift. It could be any of these things. I don't really know, but what I saw was, okay, the government trying to, as it is right now, the current government trying to reform, trying to say, like, okay, let's pick ourselves up and figure out our way forward. And they're kind of going on as if everything was the same. But at the same time, there's this wave of energy that's coming up from the southern states. And it really is, it seems like a divide along party lines. And this energy comes up from that, and it's kind of got its own wave going in a totally different direction. There's a lot of energy in it. And it doesn't affect everywhere because we're a huge country. So it's like I'm up here in the Northwest and we're kind of like off on our own little space and nobody really cares about us over here. We're like another country. So it's not going to affect everybody. And in the same way is what they're saying. There's different parcels, different parties, different parcels, different energies happening, but there's certainly a separation and a disruption. And Salome is saying the Fifth Republic in France is supposed to offer liberté, égalité, fraternité. Yes. So I can relate to this a lot as well. Yes. And I really feel like our countries had that really, really similar rising in a very similar way. Okay. So they're saying it's a separation of fields. So there's like all these different places within the nation where there is this general feeling where it just can't hold together any longer. And then they go on to say, this anger that lies within the belly, this cauldron of energy, must erupt and form a purpose for itself. It creates within the nation the separation which we are speaking of. And this does form and renew differently for each parcel of the country. So, whew, all right. And thanks for hanging in there with me, you guys. I know that is, I don't want to call it, I just want to call it news. I was going to say, is that bad news, good news? I'm not going to take a stand on that. I'm just going to say that was news. These are things that could happen. And it's going to be change and changing and leading us into some potentially amazing things. Like this idea of our nation moving towards a better expression of our ideals, of this idea of a greater expression of equalities. That's yes, please, right? I think like we all want that. Everybody at their core, everybody wants that. Of course, why wouldn't they? You know what I mean? Like all of us want that. Anyways, that's a whole nother debate. But I believe at the soul level, everybody wants that. So I hope you guys have a great weekend. I will share more around the more abstract concepts that we also channeled on. If you guys have stuff you want me to channel on a future Q&A session, let me know. Send it to me, put it in the comments, and I'll save those questions and I'll try to incorporate them in a future Friday Live. So don't forget, if you want to join me for the Circle of 12, I think the program is going to fill fairly quickly. It's already partially full. And it does involve a weekend where ideally COVID permitting will be together here in the Washington area. So if you want to do it, make sure it is a thing where you're able to come, like I said, COVID permitting, and be with me here for a very, very special experience with the angels, where we're going to be creating an energetic structure together. And it also includes some private sessions, which are awesome. So thanks so much, you guys. Have a great weekend, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.